All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore one of the most incredible works of literature ever created, the Shahnameh, the Book of Kings. Now, this isn't just any old book. It was written by the poet Ferdowsi over 1,000 years ago, and it's the national epic of Iran, a true pillar of world literature. It tells this sweeping story of Iran, all the way from the creation of the world right up to the 7th century. And the cast of characters? Well, it's just on another level.
Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking about roughly 2,000 different characters. That's more than pretty much any fantasy series you can think of, all packed into one epic poem. You've got kings, heroes, demons, magical beasts. It's this incredibly dense and beautiful tapestry of stories.
So, the big question is, with a world this massive, where do you even start? I mean, it can feel a little intimidating, right? Like you're trying to cram the entire history of a civilization into your brain all at once. But luckily for us, Ferdowsi left a kind of map to guide us through it all.
And here's the secret. The best way to get a handle on the Shahnameh is to break it down into its 3 great ages. Each one has its own vibe, its own central figures, and its own legendary tales. So let's start where it all began.
First up, we have the mythical age. This is the very beginning, the dawn of time. This is where the world is literally being shaped. We're talking about the first king, the discovery of fire, the first laws, and of course, the first epic showdown between good and evil.
This whole era is really defined by these larger-than-life rulers. It all kicks off with Keyumars, the first man and the first king. His successors build civilization, leading to the reign of King Jamshid, who brings about a true golden age. But it doesn't last. The world is plunged into 1,000 years of darkness under the tyrannical serpent king Zahak, until a new hero, Ferdowsi, finally rises up to bring back the light.
And if you want to understand the core conflict of the Shahnameh, look no further than these two. Jamshid is the ideal king. He brings prosperity, peace, even establishes Nowruz, the Persian New Year. But his fatal flaw is pride, and it costs him everything. It opens the door for Zahak, who is evil incarnate. Seriously, this guy has snakes growing out of his shoulders that he has to feed with the brains of young men every single day. It's the ultimate picture of a just world versus absolute chaos.
So what's the deal with all this? Well, it all comes back to this core concept called Ferdowsi, or the divine glory. Think of it as a mystical, God-given light, a kind of divine right to rule that rests upon a just king. When a king like Jamshid has the fair, the world thrives. But the moment he loses it through arrogance, he becomes vulnerable to darkness and to monsters like Zahak. This idea is the thread that ties the entire epic together.
Okay, next up we enter the heroic age. Now this is the longest and probably the most famous part of the Shahnameh. The spotlight shifts a bit from the kings on the throne to the incredible larger-than-life heroes who fight to defend Iran.
And let's be real, when you say heroic age, you're really talking about one person, Rostam. He is the champion of Iran, unbelievably strong, fiercely loyal, and the sworn protector of Iran's kings for generations. His adventures, his 7 epic trials, his legendary horse Raksh, this is the heart and soul of the epic.
And Rostam doesn't just come out of nowhere. Heroism is literally in his blood. His grandfather, Sam, was a great warrior, and his father, Zal, has this incredible backstory, born with white hair, cast out, and then raised by the mythical Simurgh bird. So yeah, Rostam was pretty much destined for greatness.
But this isn't just a story about epic battles and monsters. The Shahnameh is full of deep, profound human tragedy. And there is no story more tragic, more famous, than the tale of Rostam and his son, Sohrab. See, Rostam has a son he never gets to meet, who grows up in an enemy kingdom to become a warrior just as mighty as his father. And you can probably guess what happens next. They end up facing each other on the battlefield, with no idea who the other person is.
This line right here, it's just so beautiful and so sad. It describes the moment Sohrab's mother names him, his name meaning bright-faced, because he was a happy, radiant baby. It captures all the hope and love of his birth. And that simple, happy image makes the end of their story, where Rostam mortally wounds his own son, one of the most devastating moments in all of literature. It's this timeless tale of fate and loss that just stays with you.
Okay, so after all those grand, sweeping tales of heroes, the epic takes a really fascinating turn. We move into the third and final section, the historical age. And this is where things start to feel a little more grounded.
This is the point where legend and history start to blur together.
The superhuman champions like Rostam begin to fade into the background, and we start to see names and events that historians can actually point to in the records, from the Parthian and Sasanian empires.
The big turning point here is the arrival of a figure called Eskandar. And who is that? Well, that's their telling of the story of Alexander the Great and his conquest of Persia. From that point on, the poem follows the rise and fall of actual historical dynasties right up to the very end of the Sasanian Empire, which marks the end of ancient Iran and the conclusion of the Shahnameh itself.
So, we've journeyed through these 3 incredible ages, from pure myth to something that feels a lot like history. Which brings us to the big question. Why? Why has the Shahnameh survived for more than 1,000 years? Why does it still matter so much?
Well, it's because this is so much more than just a book of stories. For Persian culture, it's the bedrock. It's the foundation of the modern Persian language, and its stories, they're about timeless, universal human struggles. Heroism, betrayal, love, fate, the endless battle between justice and tyranny, order and chaos. In a way, it's a mythological and historical map to the very soul of a nation.
The world of the Shahnameh is absolutely huge, and we've really only just scratched the surface today. Every single one of those 2,000 characters has a part to play in this incredible epic of glory, tragedy, and everything in between. So I guess the only question left for you is, whose story are you going to dive into first?